We believe in this group, in the power of story.
But it didn't work for me.
And it was what made my grandmother tell me all the time, son, you're blessed.
But it saved my life. It redeemed me. It's the way God found me.
James 1, verse 22 says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says, like a man who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at it goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like." This is the Portland Stories podcast. My name is Tony Kriz, and these are my dear friends. We got a great panel of people today, a bunch of all-stars, a bunch of Hall of Famers, and Sebastian. Great. So I'm gonna go around the horn here. I'm gonna introduce you and just say hi to everybody. There's first of all, Janus Sanders, my good friend. Janus, how are you today?
Good. Yeah. Hey, everybody.
Good. And Doug, who is what I will look like in 30 years. Doug Crane.
Looking forward to the topic, Tony.
Oh, good. Well, that's why you're here. Thank you so much. And then we got Greg Taylor. Greg Taylor, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
That's Greg. And remember, when it comes to Greg, let the Wookiee win. And then, of course, Larry Anderson, ever present, ever strong, ever opinionated Larry Anderson.
You know I'm down with you, Tony.
And just to round it out, we brought in a foreigner, Sebastian Rogers.
It's an honor to be here, Tony. Thank you.
Go ahead and speak up, Sebastian. Don't be shy. If you were, it'd be the first time in your life. Okay.
Yeah.
So my question for today that I was hoping you guys could help me out with, that's why I've invited you here. The question is, how are white men stupid? How are white men stupid is our topic. And I've been trying to figure it out. I read this book by Michael Moore called Stupid White Men. I've been looking at my face in the mirror, but I walk away and I forget what I look like. So I've brought all of you in to weigh in on this topic. How are white men stupid, and who wants to kick us off? Well, let's start with this. When I suggested this topic, Doug didn't like it. He felt like the word stupid was not a good word to use. Doug, why don't you like the word stupid in reference to white men?
Well, first of all, I'm white, and when you pair white, me, and stupid, it's intimidating because, sometimes I actually think of myself that way, and I've been working on not being stupid, rather trying to, be myself. And then stupid comes off as not intelligent, like you're not with the party. And I've got a pretty bad case of FOMO. I like being right in the center of things. And so anyway, so this topic is a little off-putting for I've been invited to be the one of the white guys in a conversation about stupid white guys. And I go, that's my friends. That's my friends.
That's right. And just for anybody this is their first time, we are friends. This is a community of men that have been meeting together for decades, trying to really work through some of these questions, some of these issues around faith and culture and God and justice together, and discussing topics like the one today. And Greg and Larry and Doug in particular have been in this conversation for 30 years or close to, and then to varying degrees, Janus, Sebastian, and I have come in, and they've allowed us to be a part of it and to stand on their shoulders and their wisdom. So I appreciate them being here. Doug, is there a term you prefer better than stupid?
Ignorant was one that came to mind. Uninformed, naive. Those are all words that I relate to when we get to this topic of race and being friends.
Can you interrupt in this format like you can in Friday Group?
What was that? Oh, yeah.
Can you interrupt in this format?
Please do.
Okay.
Oh, please.
I want to interrupt Doug there because I think that the thing that makes white men stupid is actually not ignorance. It might be, but it's a belief that they know. It's actually a belief of their intelligence. The same thing that makes Doug feel uncomfortable when you say white men are stupid is the thing that actually makes them stupid. White supremacy in the end is foundational to what makes white men stupid, because all the gifts and talents they have to bring to the table are blessings given by God outside of white supremacy, or outside of like human supremacy, I should say, which is kind of like manifested in the white man at this point as the, force of empire of human evil crossing the globe.
Yeah, one of the certain things about white men is that they like to do all the talking.
Yeah. Absolutely. They don't like to do the talking. They like to do the solving and the fixing and the telling and everything. They want to do everything, not just the talking.
And the other part is when they come across a subject that makes them uncomfortable, or that they haven't experienced, or that they refuse to listen to, then they retreat into this posture of, well, I just don't know. Or if somebody would teach me and educate me, as if that would change their stupid behavior. And so it has very little to do with knowing or not knowing, or being intelligent or being unintelligent. Is what we're not stupid because we don't know. In particular in this case, white men are not stupid because they don't know, or they are in a position where they could not know. They're stupid because in spite of what they know, they don't do anything about it, or they do the opposite of it, or they ignore it. It's like what Tony said. I look in the mirror and I see my face, and then when I leave the mirror, I forget what I look like.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's just the stupidity. And so this idea that, well, I wouldn't be stupid if somebody would teach me, or if I just knew better. And I find that to be the opposite true. I think stupidity doesn't allow you to know any better, or to listen to a reality or a truth. And
that's why woke white people are more dangerous.
And so when you're confronted with the truth, your refusal to hear it or listen to it is what makes you stupid.
Well, why is it so hard to hear some of it? I mean, in my experience, Larry, it is, it just doesn't come easy. And maybe it's because that whiteness is just so ingrained that when we get to these conversations, and, like I said, Tony, we're here with friends. And honestly, I am intimidated a lot when I'm in the presence of friends who will be honest with me. So that'd be it.
Well, it goes to the source of our issue, and that is how we've positioned ourselves and how we see ourselves in relation to others.
Right.
And in this case, and in this reality, white men see themselves as superior. They see themselves as above. They see themselves as the norm. And so when they see
controlling the terms.
Yeah, and they see other people as the other. The addition to. So if they're not, significant or prominent in whatever activities be taking place, they are threatened by that. And the stupidity kicks in when they don't accept the reality that they are just one of many cultural people groups in community. Not
Greg, jump in here.
People group.
Greg, jump in here. I saw you wanted to talk.
Well, I was going to tell Doug, isn't that the blessing that you have somebody will tell you truth and love, so that you can have a blind spot revealed to you, so that it's not blind anymore?
Totally, Greg. I mean, absolutely, totally. It is truly a blessing to have friends who will be honest with you and not let you get away with that stuff, which of course, Larry and I have been in that relationship for years. And I'm I'd hate to say that I'm getting used to it, but I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I expect it, because it happens with such frequency, because I am who I am, and it's been a long time making me, and it's going to take a long time to unravel me or change me or move me into something else. And of course, this is about, we have done this journey together in faith, seeking a higher way, a better way, seeking God, seeking. So that's why the journey has been so meaningful to me.
Yeah, but Doug, not just Larry. You got other friends.
Absolutely
true. Do that as well. Maybe Larry does it with a little more bass in his voice, or maybe a little louder, or even maybe more often. But you have other friends that share with you in the very same way. And that's really the nature of our friendship, sharing truth and love. But to me, this notion of meritocracy that white people bring to the table on a regular basis ignores that there's not level playing fields.
Right.
And that the whole world is, or our world is based on the fact that if you are everyone's equal and everyone's able to achieve at the same level. And confronted with the reality that it's not, the privilege exists, they choose to ignore it. And no matter how many examples that you give, they decide that it's not true. And so that's one of the reasons of how white men are not uninformed. They just choose to ignore the obvious.
Yeah, and I would argue that white men are particularly stupid. We all have blind spots, right? But white men are particularly stupid because most contexts, they control the terms of the debate. They determine the stage, they determine the rules, they determine how things go down, they determine who's in charge. So therefore, they don't have to put up with other people's voices. They don't have to listen the way that most other folks who are walking around, particularly in American society, they have to learn to listen and to play by someone else's rules in order to survive. White men, by and large, don't have to, or am I wrong, Janus?
What I want to say is that white men are stupid because they don't realize that anyone could be white. We may not benefit to the extent of white men because of the color of our skin, but we can internalize whiteness perfectly. We can internalize whiteness to the extent of our intelligence. But the only difference is we don't benefit from that. Now, it's not hard to be a white man. In fact, there's probably only about 12 archetypes of a white guy. But a white man can see someone of color perfectly emulating white and hate him. And yet white men still want to be white. Why is that?
Well, white is a designation. And so what we know, oftentimes we don't realize is that when the Poles first came to this country, they weren't white. Neither were the Ashkenazi Jews, neither were Italians. It's a whole group of people that weren't white. They later they were designated white. White's a designation.
Right.
Once you're designated white, then and people now think it's a birthright. Right? Being white is who they are. When they didn't recognize that they were at one time or another, they weren't designated as being white. There's a whole group of people like that.
But this is kind of what I want to hit home to, is that a white man can look at a person of color emulating whiteness perfectly and not like what they see. And yet, at the same time, they can love their whiteness. Why is that?
So I just want to throw another thing in here. It's been hugely important to me, this understanding of identity that is way different in Friday Group. Like, we're talking white, black, white, black, white, black. But we know in the privacy of our own conversations, we seek to destroy those categories and to look past them to who we are in God, right? I feel like if you go back to the story of Babel, where we're east of Eden, we're trying to build a tower out of bricks, it's the dawning of technology. It's like the further we get from the garden, the more we have to rely on technology. What we physically call a white guy, like a light-colored skinned guy, in some way, anthropologically, historically, has journeyed further and further and further away from the garden until he's in some frozen tundra where technology, where building bricks instead of relying on what God provides. So in white supremacy and in whiteness is this that's why this, because we went in Friday group the other day, we were discussing what is stupid about white guys. And what Jeff Morland has always told me is, stop trying to make a plan. Like, you hear one word from God, and then you try and build a plan of your own, and you try and fix everything and do everything. You know, like, God brings you into a relationship with a black guy, and immediately you're trying to manipulate, build. And I think it's something to do with that frozen wasteland away from God, where the lighter hued people were developed. But what really interests me, Janus, is you're a black guy, so you know, genetically you're from the what we might call the fertile crescent, the seat of humanity, not straying so far. And yet you see technology so differently than I. And I'd love to hear you talk about technology and whiteness.
Well, if you don't want to get away from it, I mean, right now you're getting away from the question. You're not actually answering the question.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was just being a little white.
Well, okay. So the way I'm trying to.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Sebastian. Hold on a second, because it's a lot simpler. It's really easy, and that's what makes racism work. If I go to a guy on the street and I go, "Hey, am I a black guy?" They go, "Yeah," and so that's how racism works. They don't go into the whole eloquent speech you just did. The system just works. You would actually have to invest a lot of energy to challenge the simplicity of racism.
Janus, just to jump on that and to throw myself under the bus. If I'm standing in a room and Doug walks in and I look over, my first thought is there's a guy.
Mm-hmm.
If you walk in, I think there's a black guy.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that to do with stupidity though?
That's it.
Yes,
That's it. No, he just said it. That's it.
No, the stupidity is what we saw Doug struggle with a little bit, and it was so subtle that we didn't recognize it, is that he immediately, as he began to internalize this issue of white stupidity and how it made him feel, he became the central focus of all things that matter.
Nice.
That it was all about him and his feelings, emotion, and that he was oblivious to how his infectious stupidity affects people, the others, which is a violation of the very etiquette that comes from the doctrines that we call the scriptures. Is to consider others before yourself, to be more concerned about others than yourself. The stupidity that makes white men stupid is the denial of that, and then being so self-focused and so self-centered and almost narcissists in there. I think that they put themselves in the middle. In fact, they put themselves in the center of creation itself.
Right.
And so that even as I'm processing this, you know, this stupidity, the thing that makes it stupid is that everything is processed from your perspective, without a consideration of anybody else, that you became the main theme in the story, and that everything has to relate to that. And that even when confronted with the truth that that's not true, you refuse to hear that, and therefore make yourself stupid constantly. And it's a constant tug of war, bringing the story back to my feelings, my thoughts, me being the center, even if it's in a negative thing. Even if I become the center of the angst and the hostility, as long as I'm in the center, that's the part that's important. That's why racism plays a central role in that, and that's why you hear racists always have the national anthem of everybody hates, that's not white, hates them, because it puts them right in the center of whatever is happening in whatever movement that exists. And then outside of them and their value in that, nothing else matters. And that's the stupidity of it. And it's that simple, but yet is that. So even when we watched Doug, even when Doug was talking about how it made him feel and all that, he became the central figure in the story. And we all waited patiently to hear to see the outcome or to critique his outcome in this. And it is not an other-centered thought process. It always focuses on self. It always makes self more important. And even in this case, it makes white self more important, which we know is a lie. What makes all this stupid is it's a lie. It's false. And we read that in the scriptures. Men aren't stupid because they don't hear or don't know. They're stupid because they refuse to do what they're told. That's the stupidity.
To love.
Yeah, to love. To be other-centered. Yet this stupidity makes all of us self-centered.
Does supremacy in itself do that? Is that, that seems to me.
Well, the supremacy is the collective raising that system, that value above everything else now.
But like spoiling the child, is a white man so stupid because they've been so spoiled? And is that what makes them so narcissistic? You know, like an only child doesn't share his toys. He doesn't learn the impact of his own attitudes on others in the same way.
Well, Sebastian, that's a result, but it's more insidious than that. Because again, you're saying, well, this is just something we've been taught. That's not true, because you have also have the ability to be untaught this, and your refusal to do that.
Willful.
And so that's what makes it more insidious. And so that escape into, well, it's just a matter of how I was raised, or I don't know any better, is not true.
Yeah.
And like a child, it's so like addicted to the moment. Like if I were to think of wanting a good life, I would over the extent of my life and then my children's lives and my children's lives, I would think to myself, well, I want to be loved. Like I want to be in life with people from all sorts of backgrounds, and I want this richness. But in the moment, I'm so addicted to the moment. It's like I need the spotlight, I need the stage, I need the power, I need the control, I need the money, I need the boom, 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 and it's just in the moment, and I can't even. It's like we can't even get above that.
Right. Well, we're just scratching the surface of this, because whiteness and racism is also a business model. It's how we generate economics, and the crux of whiteness, racism, and white supremacy is moving income through oppression and economic disparity. That's how money moves. That's how global economics works. And if you're white, that money flows through you first. And so it's not just this internalized value system and morality. You actually have economics based on this, and you protect that economic model through atrocious means.
Well, I wonder if there's a tie to what we now call whiteness and that economic, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. The first monetary systems were based on empire. So were they in fact a tool of white supremacy from the very beginning?
Well, don't get into...
In that way, can you possibly
don't fall into the trap of now we're defining white supremacy and what it means to be white and not dealing with the stupidity of it.
Stupidity.
Okay, so we can spend a whole nother session talking about defining white supremacy and the power structure that's built on it, the disparity that it creates, the racism that it used to enforce it through oppression and violence. But the subject matter is the stupidity of it. Okay, because that's a whole nother power structure that has enabled people to be in a position that they don't deserve, but they're privileged.
I think the stupidity is that the trappings of whiteness separate you from God.
Yeah, and again, so we can get into that, but let's go back to what makes it stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious in how does the stupidity work out in like everyday life, like walking down the road. How are white guys stupid? Sitting in a meeting. How are white guys stupid? Going to church. How are white guys stupid? Like
how are we affected by that stupidity as people?
Exactly.
When I talk to people about racism, I point them to Dr. Seuss in the Star Billy Sneetches. If you go watch that, Dr. Seuss pointed out the stupidity of racism, because it's about, you have this group of people who are the same, but one has a star on their belly and the other doesn't. And the one that benefits is a guy in the middle making this thing work and happen very simply. He just gets in the middle of that thing, he stirs it up, they go to this machine and they trade off this and that, and really what it does is it puts money in his pocket.
Yeah.
And it's because you have a star on your belly and I don't. So if you want to know it, go to a child's book called The Star Billy Sneetches by Dr. Seuss, and he completely talked about the stupidity of white men.
And white parents all over America read that to their kids and go, "Isn't that stupid, kids? That they would act like this? Aren't they stupid?"
But isn't there a diminishing? It's been around for a long time.
Yeah, Dr. Seuss was a genius.
Isn't there a diminishing of what makes us different, though, in that statement? Because, like, what makes me and Janus or me and Larry different isn't just a star on our belly. It's like a lifetime of experience. It's like a cultural background. It's like centuries of different learning and teaching and experience passed down through generations. Like, Larry just doesn't have a star and I don't have a star. Larry's like an entirely differently created being that that is part of the body of Christ. You know, these differences being celebrated.
Sebastian, one of the things that Tony said that I wouldn't want to come back to is when he walks in a room and sees Doug's, he sees a white guy.
Yeah.
No, I see a guy.
A person of color, he sees that person as if white is human,
right,
and everything else is, and then others. Then there's others. And then when you ask white, and then you ask someone that's designated as white, ask them what race they are. They look at you with a strange look. What do you mean race? What do you mean race? I'm not a race. I'm white. Everyone else is a race. I'm not. Okay? And one of the ways that to respond to what Jada says is that's one of the ways that they continue to manifest this system that disadvantages others to the advantage of some. Is that they create these falsehoods, these lies, and then manipulates them to everyone to the point where almost everyone believes it. And so so the system continues to exist. And so they think that white is human. When it's
Tony's analogy,
they're stupid because they recognize that it's the human race.
Right.
Okay. That my blood and your blood can mix. Is that we're all human, and that we all have melanin in our skin. Just some people manifest more melanin than others. Okay? Now, when you're talking about culture, and you talk about national origin, well, that's true. Okay? And we talk about experience, that's true. But at the base of it all, we're human beings, all of us.
But the stupidity of what he identified, that makes us different is ignored. All that's ignored and discounted. That's the stupidity. Never get to that. I think the key words is it's lies.
Right. I was just thinking about lies.
And we know they're lies.
Right.
Yet we perpetrate them in our behavior towards one another. We accept designations we know that aren't true.
The ways we think that we're the same are lies, and the ways we think that we are different are also lies.
right.
These are the lies that we have told ourselves and we've convinced each other to act on. And
Well, Tony had this image of us walking down the street being stupid white guys and everything. Oh, bumble, it's trip, stumble. But the truth is, whiteness works absolutely perfectly in the system in which we live. So actually, it's like pulling on these levers and the machine is working perfectly. So a white stupidity doesn't appear stupid to white people because it works so much for their benefit.
Exactly.
But does it on a kingdom perspective? No, it doesn't. It works directly against them and it's the seed of their own destruction. But that's another subject.
Well,
that's why I'm saying about whiteness separating you from God.
Well, that is the subject. That is the subject. But because it's another subject, because it's other subject in your normal everyday life, that's what makes you stupid. You've taken a thing that's the most important decision that you have to make in your life about operating in the Father's kingdom, and you relegated that to the other or somewhere else, and then this is the life you have. This is the life you replaced it with. And that's what makes that stupid. And even in the body, even in the ones who have been called out separated, we are affected the same way by the lies.
Right.
So that we think just like they think in corporate America. We think just like they think in the tech industry. We think just like they think in the culture. That this is another conversation for another time or a side note, when in fact that is life and death for us. And then for us, it's the life. And yet we've relegated to a side discussion because what we believe about ourselves and the others is more important than that. That is stupidity.
Yeah, one of these days I'd love to be watching ESPN or CNN or Fox News, something, and have somebody turn to the panel and go, so what's the white perspective on that topic? Can we get the white perspective? Like, you will never hear that, but we could put it on the TV today and we'll get, so give me the Asian perspective. Give me the brown perspective on that, you know? But no, there's no such thing as a white perspective because white is what is.
White is the baseline reasoning for everything we believe. And that's why you never hear white people say, this is our leader. Black people, who's the black leadership? Who's the leader in the Asian community? Who's the leader in the, you never hear white folks say, who's our leader? And so, you know, take me to your white leader. And who's the leader? Who's the spokesman for all white people?
We know that now.
How does stupidity play into the concept of equal opportunity? Janus, thoughts?
Yeah, the question doesn't apply to people of color. That's a white question. You'd have to ask something a little more universal.
No, we all have the same laws. We all have the same education. We all have the same opportunity, Janus.
He's going.
Do you understand, Tony? You understand what I'm saying, right?
No, I don't. Explain it to me. I'm stupid.
From a perspective of a black guy, there's always a struggle. From an early age, we have to deal with adult issues called racism. I mean, it's an impossible task. Equality does not exist in this particular reality, only in the reality of a white guy. And so because it only exists in your reality, you're the only one that can actually ask that question.
Okay, fine. You have the same school system. You have the same opportunity to get a job. You have more opportunities than I do because you got more scholarships. You got, and I know the laws are the same. The laws say we're all the same. So therefore, I think that you're just holding you down.
Okay, so
you and your people are just holding you down. That's what's going on.
I completely reject the question, but I'll humor it for a second.
Thank you.
Let's say that I didn't start off with 27 dimensions behind an average white guy. That everything that I do is from behind the race, not at equal or ahead of the race. Then we can actually have that conversation. The truth of the matter is if I'm competing and if I'm better, it's because I came from behind and I'm just better than you.
Tony,
So
you're actually doing the thing that you said that white guys do, which is controlling the conversation. You're making it about like the black experience instead of your stupidity. Although you are displaying the classic like words of white stupidity.
Well, it's the idea that, you know, we can determine from our position of normality what is acceptable for other people to participate in the process. What we define what is the equal value to participate in the process when we occupy all the spaces. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and so we occupy all the spaces as a matter of fact, and then we're going to decide how many spaces we're going to allow other people to occupy, and we call that equal opportunity. And so that idea that is a misnomer. It's the idea that somehow you are afforded all these privileges that I don't have. Again, it's the focusing on the fact that these underrepresented places or people have nothing to do with the overrepresentation of you. Mm. And that the privilege that you have had that's created a disparity, you are now attempting to regulate by allowing other people at a limited rate to participate, while at the same time you feel victimized as though somebody's taking away your privilege.
And on top of that, you have this, I mean, this is the hardest thing about letting go of my whiteness, which I haven't even begun to do. But when I experience that real feeling of forgetting what I saw in the mirror, like I come to you guys and I hear you telling me, look, you know, because I'm mentoring, you know, young creatives of color, and you're like, you're going to hurt these guys. Janus is like, you're just damaging these people. You've all said it to me at some point, like you can't help all your whiteness. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be so determined. I'm going to be so aware. I'm going to spend all this time being aware. And then I have an interaction and my whiteness, which is like, you don't understand how the system works. You've got to do A, B, and C, and you've got to follow these steps, and you've got to blah, 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 and you want to blah, and, you know, all opinion, not listening, just like trying to push, like trying to fit them into the system, which I know was not designed for them. Like that stuff on a subconscious level, no matter how hard I try, and you hate that word try, but really there is some genuine like white knuckling effort going on. Like it always works out that my whiteness is the dominating factor in that relationship, both for them because of how they see me, but also because of the way I behave. And it's this constant like shameful waking up and looking in the mirror again going, damn, again?
Well, one of the things that make white men stupid is even in the Zoom call, you have people of color that represent the best of humanity, and yet you're not even asking how is that possible. If you have to endure, if your life is an Exodus story and you have to endure all this stuff, what makes you stay in the game? Better than that, what makes you go for excellence in the midst of all this oppression and adversity? And a white guy will miss the opportunity. We will spend the next hour talking about white guys and missing the fact that the best of humanity is in this room.
Well, that's because you made the subject stupid white guys, not excellent black guys. If it was excellent black guys, then you know, Janus, we would have you on a bullhorn.
Well, it's stupid not to recognize that.
Yeah, that is true.
But again, that stupidity has an effect on everyone. And what has been the effect of that stupidity on white people? We know the oppressive nature of it on the others, whoever they classify as the others. But what effect has that stupidity had on white men that makes them stupid? We can't forget that's what we're talking about. Even in this subject, the very talk of the subject, it gets deferred into people's responses to, or how it affects others, or how it influences culture. And we are, what did you say to me, Sebastian, when we first started? This is the one subject that white guys don't want to really explain to black guys. Is what has this stupidity done to white men that makes them stupid?
Okay, let's try it out, Doug. Doug, you've lived a good life. You love your wife, you love your kids, you love your grandchildren, you live in that great, big, beautiful house on the edge of a golf course. How have you been harmed by your stupidity?
Yeah, I've been coming to Friday morning for years, Tony. You know that.
Yeah.
And to live the oblivious life is not. So what's your question again? How have I been?
How have you been harmed by your stupid white manness?
Would you like me to yell it at you?
Right, again. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it goes back to my faith and the self-centeredness that already came up, the lack of a diverse experience that is I've come to where, I think Larry knows this, I used to talk a lot in Friday morning. And I, for the last several years, I've come and just listened. So I think that I'm beginning to be aware of what I don't know, and that it does hurt me. And I think that not unlike what's already come up here, I make it about me, when if there's ever going to be change in the world, it's got to go beyond that. And, Tony, you already confessed, just like I would, that I see a white man, but then it's just, I see a man, but then I acknowledge a black man in a different way. And how do I get to the point where, so I'm starting to get to the point where, I know the three black guys on this call in a different way. It's like Larry talks about, being a father, a husband, a police officer. Greg has beautiful daughters that have a whole life, and Janus, we've had some fun together. So, we've had some really hard times together too. But I feel like for me to miss all that, Tony, would be an absence in my life that would be a huge mistake. And so, and a lack of growth, and a lack of living out a true relationship with God. Larry has used the word a lot, a lie. And I think that I am beginning, I'm so thick-headed on this, but I'm beginning to see and know where I am living out a lie. And it's insidious. So it's hard.
Isn't it a tool of the adversary to divide his people? Isn't it a tool of the adversary? And if you have one tool that works best, it's this whole topic right now. And so we call ourselves people of faith, yet we are stupid about what the very nature of what we say that we believe at the core of our being. And we separate ourselves. In fact, Sunday is the most segregated day of the week, because us people of faith separate ourselves, and faith in Yah separate our faith ourselves based on not culture, but we separate ourselves in race. I was a member of the CMEs. The Christian Methodists used to be colored, but now they've changed that to clean it up to Christian Methodists. The Methodists wouldn't allow us into their church, and so they, and not that I'm religion, it's just an example. Okay, they wouldn't allow us, so they said you can be Methodist as long as you are a colored Methodist. Okay, and so the stupidness of it all is that we said God is our Father, but we don't acknowledge the fact that or act like we are really brothers. Okay? And then, in ignoring that, we become stupid. We just ignore it. And when it's pointed out, we create obstacles that we create these terms, these reasons why we aren't, but we separate ourselves. And so evangelical Christians, quite candidly, are some of the most difficult people to deal with, because exactly what you're saying, what I'm saying. They just refuse to acknowledge the fact that it's the human race. It's that we are God's people, and ignoring that, they're stupid.
Well, and the faith that doesn't move in a way that into relationship, like we've talked about, is a lie. And it's that, how do you move to where where you see the lie, or you see the conflict in, Tony, you said it, but I'll see somebody walking through the neighborhood, or I'll see a black man walking through the neighborhood, or even a Hispanic man who I know is probably working on the yards in my neighborhood.
Well, you assume he's working in yards.
I know, but why do I think that way, Greg?
Well, I mean, the big thing is that it blinds us. Our stupidity blinds us. What does it blind the white man, makes him stupid? Because he can't see God in the black man.
Yep.
That's right. What makes you stupid. You can't see God in the black man. Therefore, in your mind, the black man can speak no life to you.
And I can't hear God's black voice.
You can't see. And so you can't see God in the black man. Mm. And so you can't hear God. And so if I hate white people and I can't see God in white men, then I can't hear God. Because the whole scripture says, he that says he's in the light but hates his brother is in the darkness. Mm. Translation, if you can't see God in your brother, then you don't know God.
Right.
And this thing you're worshiping is an image of yourself that you've created. Because how can you worship something that you ain't never seen, yet what you see every day you hate? And the Bible clearly says in the beginning that mankind, every man is made in the image of God. And you hate that image. You hate the black image of God. That's your stupidity. And in this culture, you bought the soup. Mm-hmm. of self-idolization. You bought it, and therefore you see no value of life in black man. Yet it is the black man in these times is the only way you're going to hear God. And so your stupidity does not allow you to overcome your whiteness and open your eyes to see God in the black man. That's your stupidity.
Like Janus said, we took the bribe.
You took the bribe.
Right, Janus?
I'm going to change it a little bit and explain why it hurts you. And I'm not talking about everybody in cyberspace. I'm talking to you, Tony, Doug, and Sebastian. I actually really like you guys. I actually want to be friends with you. But your whiteness is exhausting. And not only that, but there's a whole line of you guys that I want to be friends with, but I just can't because, A, you guys don't talk to each other about everything that's going wrong, how it hurt you, but it really hurts you because you guys are exhausting. You know, and Sebastian, I can't tell you that you really don't have anything unique to offer because I know how much that hurts you. But it's the whiteness and the archetype that you've put on that I see at scale every single day that makes you one of 1,000 people in line to be my friend. And there's nothing unique about you, and there's nothing unique about them because you've given that up for this white thing. And I actually want to be your friend, Tony and Doug, but because I do it at a distance, because it's just painful. And I've been through it 1,000,000 times over. That's how it hurts you.
And
that's what makes you stupid.
Can I speak from the internal experience of that a little bit? Because I think that what we're talking about is there's two relationships in this God relationship. One is, love thy father, and then love your brother. So you, Janus and Larry, have both put really strong and true words to why it hurts us relationally. But it actually, to live in a place where you think you know everything and you think you have to fix everything, and you're not, whiteness in itself manifests this non-reliance on God. Because it has all this privilege and things of the world and technology and education and these things that we can use to save ourselves, there's this distance from God. And it's anxiety causing, it's exhausting, it brings me to my knees and has done all my life. And it's being able to be on my knees in front of you guys and being shown other ways of thinking and being and relating to God, which has saved me many times over the last few years. And I'm sure Tony can speak to that too. So it doesn't just damage our horizontal relationship to each other. It comes between me and God on a regular basis. And it's like getting over this stupidity is coming into the kingdom.
Yeah, but Janus, I don't know why Janus refuses to tell you how that's happened to you.
He doesn't. He tells me all the time he loves me.
Well, as a people group,
right.
When you bought into whiteness, where did you purchase the whiteness from? Janus, I think, referred to it in our conversation on Friday, is that you took the bribe.
Mm-hmm.
You took the bribe that was offered by Satan to the Mashiach, and he refused, but he offered it to you, and you took it.
Yeah.
And
we used the tool of our own hands.
And you created this whole culture based on the bribe, which created the self-adulation that you call white supremacy.
Right.
That you could have the benefit, the prosperity, the positional authority that was given to you by Creator, but you don't have to obey what the Creator says. You don't have to suffer. Others will suffer for you. That's what he offered. That's what the Satan offered the Messiah in the days of temptation. He said, look, I understand who you are. I understand why you're here, and I understand who sent you, but I will give you all these things. You don't have to go through all that suffering. That's required, which is the very reason why he came here, to suffer on our behalf. But he offered him to give him all that without the suffering, without being obedient, without going through. And he refused. And by the way, he was a brown-skinned man. But the white-skinned man who he offered that to, he accepted it. And he wants to live a life free from suffering to obtain what was offered, except that it's a bribe. And you've built a whole culture on that now.
Has it cost the white man his soul?
If it means separation from the Creator, absolutely. And that's why you've created this false Messiah that you worship. And that's why it's so easy for evangelicals to support a man who denies the Mashiach himself and hold him up as the greatest leader in the history of this country. Because that's who you sold your souls to, the false Messiah, who doesn't require you to suffer anything, that says that you can have pleasure and kingdom because someone else will suffer for you. Someone else will pay the cost. Someone else will have to live the disparaging life so that you can live the life of pleasure, and that you can look at that without any consequence. That is the lie. And you bought that. And the stupidity is you believe that. Because if you didn't believe it, you would give up what you've obtained under this false contract immediately. So it has blinded you to see your brother, and more importantly, to see God in your brother.
Right.
Who speaks words of the Father to you for such a time as this, and you reject it in your stupidity. And you separate yourself. And you feel secure in the own belief that you're righteous. Because hasn't God blessed us with prosperity? With privilege? Hasn't he clothed us in riches?
We must be right.
We must be right. We did it because we're righteous. You do not see and understand that the judgment for you is now at the door. Or you're afraid, but you don't know what you're afraid of. That's why you can't stand someone challenging you or questioning you or pushing back to you in your privilege. You can't even have the conversation. You become so unsettled at a word. And there's no peace. So that's the real deal. And we can't even have this conversation. What Jana said is I can't even have the conversation with you because to be your friend, really, I can't lie to you. And because you can't hear the truth, our friendship will always be in question. Because we're always dancing around your whiteness together. And the minute you start feeling uncomfortable in that, then you want me to acquiesce to your comfort level. And how can I be your friend in that way?
All right. Good word.
That's the sad truth. That's the sad
hard
truth.
word.
And that's stupid. For us to live like that is stupid. That's the stupidity. That's going to separate you and keep you separate from your father, your true father.
But we can have relationship with our brothers of a lighter hue if we give up, if we have relationship on your terms. If we suffer the cost of the relationship on your terms. If we accept the whiteness for what it is, so at least what you say it is. If we accept the domination for what you say it is, if we capitulate, and so relationship on your terms is, and then we become what you need. Your example of not being who you are, because you have an example that you're not that. Because my example is Greg, or Janus, or Larry. Okay.
I have a black friend.
Yeah. And then everybody, and generally everybody uses the same black friend. Because that one black friends is their example of why they're not that in the first place. And so, and by the way, that's stupid. And it becomes draining. In fact, the truth of it is that a lot of times I've been asked by other of my friends of more melanin skin, why do you put up with that? And I want to use some F-letter words, but I'm not going to do that in our podcast. Why do you put up with that? And my response is, and I want you to hear this, is I believe that the Father will have me be in a relationship for you, because you need that. And you need someone to give you a perspective, okay? And because it's like an assignment, and oftentimes it's not pleasant, okay? But it is what we're supposed to do, I believe, okay? And then my friend, Larry Anderson, came and got me, almost against my will, and put me in the middle of this, okay? And then tell me where I was going, but says, this is what we should do, okay? And then when I got there, I agreed with him, okay? And so do I have some good relationships? Absolutely, okay? Is it draining? Often, okay? Is it, do I have to use a lot of, do I use patience? Okay? Often, okay? And do I trust a relationship? Seldom, okay? Because I can only share so much truth with love before, because you can only stomach so much at a time, okay? And so the better I get to know you, the more I can share truth and love. Okay?
All right, we're gonna wrap up by going around the horn. Everyone, sort of a last thought before we say goodbye. I appreciate you guys so much, and I almost hate to wrap up, but to anybody listening who's concerned about these things, just a couple thoughts. One is, our last episode was about why diverse relationships are necessary to discover God's truth, and why that's necessary to walking out what God wants us to walk out. So if you go back and listen to that episode or watch it on the YouTube channel. I'd also just like to point out, like Greg just said, that none of us got to this conversation by ourselves. Someone drug us to it. Someone brought us here. And none of this is alone. The stupidity is the illusion that I'm an individual. We are deeply indebted to one another, to bring each other into these things and to lean on one another and to slap each other around when we need it. That is essential to the process. All right, let's go around the horn. Let's start with Doug.
I had a friend once tell me that when we were talking about race and I didn't have any black friends, he said, you know, what you care about, you'll be intentional about. And it started a long journey. And I cannot believe, even after this long, how much I still have to gain. And I know that the three guys sitting here and the other friends I have, that is where is the future. I want to make a couple of comments, Larry, about a couple of things you said. And I think I live in this world, and like every single conversation in my life has been changed by my friendship represented on the screen right now. Every single one of them. You know, you take things that we hear all the time, every day, like make America great again. And you have to think in terms of, what do we want to go back to? And when you start learning where we've been, there can't be a desire to go back. There's got to be the desire that we're talking about of going forward together, first of all. And then like I have people who are my friends, but they react to Black Lives Matter, and they want to say all lives matter, you know. And I go, there's something that's truly missing. And I go, okay, let's keep rolling in this so I can get to express that, and we deal with your fragility, you know, and mine. And so there are things going on in my life that are just a big challenge. And yet the thing I would be afraid of would be to do it alone.
Thank you, Doug. let's try and keep it to one last thought. But that
Oh yeah. Hey, you know what?
You said the white guys talk a lot.
He needed to say that. That was beautiful.
that was good. Thank you. Janus.
I'm going existential. I want everybody watching this to know that I deeply appreciate being with these men. I've been with them for 10 years. I used to be very angry, but now I'm free to hear, to live, to speak the truth. There's nothing like it. No matter what culture and society has for us, truth is the only thing that we need and live by. And I want to tell each and every one of you guys that I really, really deeply, deeply appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Bass.
My image is frozen, but can you still hear my voice?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. I think I'd like to speak to the people listening who might have a lighter complexion and say this: there's an instinct inside of you to cling to your individualism, to when whiteness has been talked about, you just so want to get to the place where you're like, yeah, but not me. Yeah, but I don't do that. No, I don't believe that. But the most important thing I've learned is that is not how godly men relate. Like, they understand, like Larry taught me this a long time ago, when you're in a room, when you're in a conversation, you represent your people. And you, if Moses had been on top of Mount Sinai going like, yeah, God, but I didn't do that. He didn't. No, he stood before God as a representative of his people. That is what I think it means to be a godly man, is to understand that. So this kind of diving immediately into your own personal story and your own journey and your own experience and the reasons why you're not white and are not a white supremacist and not a racist, just like, that's the plank. That's the beam in your eye. That's the thing that keeps you from hearing, from seeing. Stand before your friends of color and listen as a representative of all whiteness and everything that's been done in its name. And you'll start to hear truth about yourself, because you aren't just an individual. You're part of a history and a society and a system that you were born into. You're breathing the air of it and swimming in the water of it. And you have to get out of your individualism in order to hear that and to understand it.
Thanks, Bass. Uncle Greg.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been good. It's been so good that I'm going to ask some people I've been working with that have less melanin in their skin than I do to listen to the podcast, because I think it'd be helpful. And then I'll use it as a tool to be able to talk to them.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. Larry?
Well, Tony, once again, I'm very encouraged by these men and their willingness to be open in the subject matter and be vulnerable. It's not, we realize we can't fix anybody. Our Father has to do the healing and the recovery and redemption. But I want us to know that we start in relationship, but it's our Father that brings us into his fellowship.
Yes.
And this is the process whereby fellowship occurs. And so relationship can be on our terms, however we decide it to be, but the fellowship is on his terms. And we can only have unity in the body when we're in his fellowship on his terms. And so I invite all men here in this conversation and those listening to desire and be willing to be a part of a fellowship. And this is the process. It's based in truth and light. There can be no lies and darkness. So I'm thankful for this broadcast, Tony. Thank you for the subject matter. And hopefully this is the beginning of the conversation.
Amen. All right, my last thought is, as of 2013, there are more brown babies born in America than white babies. And we all know that women live longer than men. So that means that white men are literally losing their market share every day. And for selfish reasons, we need to stop being stupid. But more importantly, for the sake of our souls, we all need to move past our stupidity, learn to love one another. And loving means mutual submission, daring to come under the authority of the one who is other, for God is other. Thank you, gentlemen. I love you. This is Portland Stories Podcast. Look for another episode here in about 2 weeks. We appreciate you. And guys, I love you. Blessings.
Be blessed, God.